Welcome to the Champion Blueprint Podcast, where mindset meets mission.
We're diving into what it really takes to lead, win, and live with purpose.
From NFL locker rooms to boardrooms, it's all about discipline, core values, and the habits that build champions.
Whether you're leveling up in business, life, or leadership, this is your playbook.
Champion your mindset.
Champion your purpose.
Let's go.
Back at it again. George Rogers, the champ, Gary Brackett.
Let's go.
How we feeling today, my friend?
Feeling good, man. We got some good feedback, off the last episode talking about love. You know what I'm saying? The love, buddy love.
What's love got to do?
Hey, man, but I love the fact that, as thought leaders, I think we have opinions on a lot of different things. People respect our opinions. So please continue to let us know what you want us to talk about and share. And we'll do our best to accommodate, all those people.
100% like, share, comment, subscribe, share this with your family and friends. Again, we're mixing it up today, Gary. We're having a lot of conversations behind the scenes, and a lot of those conversations kind of spark up things that we want to talk about on the scene. And today is just one of those things. For both of us, we do a lot of speaking engagements. We're involved in community things. For myself, my business and company, we're heavily into the HR community and the HR space with professionals all over. And we're going to trigger a word. We're at the end of February. Cannot believe it. At the end of February already. And one of my favorite sports seasons of the year is coming up, March Madness. And so we're starting a little bit of madness a little bit earlier.
Yeah, okay.
Not to necessarily ruffle feathers now. This conversation is one of those what I like to call the untouchables today, but it was something that's been speared up. But we're going to talk a little bit about DEI, because I believe DEI is at a crossroads. DEI is at a crossroads, and it's one of those feelings where it's like some people, some businesses and organizations, there's a fear, like due to political parties and the political distance and dysfunction between those. You got the fear, you have the fatigue, right, and then you have those people who see it as still the part of the future. When I think about DEI. And just from the root, right, we go all the way back to John F. Kennedy, the affirmative that was signed in 1961. This is not a new thing. For a lot of people, DEI became a springboard through the unfortunate events in 2020 with the pandemic, with the situation with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the injustice, and all of that energy rose up to the table, and all of a sudden DEI became a thing. The reality is DEI was always something. For me, I'm gonna stop there because I can go on a rant on this all day, because for me, it's like for a lot of companies and organizations, and especially in 2020, DEI was a program. And I literally said, when you start a program, the program has an end date. If it's not part of your strategy, if it's not truly who you are, it's just what you're doing for that time. And so for me, I believe DEI is part of a strategy. It is not meant to meet quotas. It wasn't created for some type of shortcut type system that it looks like today. There was a true purpose for those things, and we're going to dive into those. But what's some of your perspectives on this? Because there's a lot of impact that it happens.
No question.
And we'll cover a little bit of those impacts with that.
I think there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of miscommunication around the topic. And people are scared of it. Like if you're talking about DEI, they're, oh man, like he's going to be one of those. And for me, really, yes, it talks about African Americans, Caucasians. It talks about race, but it also talks about gender. It also talks about ageism. It also talks about, physical disabilities, right? There's so many things that it covers. So often it just get limited into race and people getting jobs that they're not necessarily qualified for. And I know we're going to talk about that, but I just think just broaden your horizon when you talk about DEI. And I've always felt, throughout my career, throughout my interactions, that the more diverse the group is that I'm getting responses from, the better that project becomes, because everyone has their own individual experiences. And that usually leads to a better result and a better product. And
so we're talking about DEI in the sense of correcting blind spots, right? It's not for this quota or this system that brings people up that don't belong, but really, as you said, open doors for those people who are qualified, but are often overlooked at times because of disabilities, right? Because of the assumption that because they have a disability, they how will they be able to function in this workplace? How will they be able to work, right? So we limit our beliefs and sometimes biased beliefs, not necessarily because of the work that they are doing because we chose to hire them, but we choose not to hire them because our assumption is they can't do the job or meet expectations without giving them the opportunity. And so those are some of the root causes of why DEI is still, to me, so important because it's an opportunity to be able to expand opportunities for other people that who are qualified, not necessarily lower those standards. And so I want to dive deep real quick in a couple of talking points. May get to like 3 of them, may get to 2. Okay. But I want to hit a couple of talking points that we can talk on because the reality of DEI is that it has shifted from strategy in 2020 to really survival mode. Yeah. A lot of companies over the last 4 years have really shifted those things. And not necessarily just companies, but we see the impact of what it has when it shifted. Yep. From an economic standpoint. We talked about those things and you brought up, some of the things that you've seen that affects us, especially for those people who for instance, are involved in stocks.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, so business econ major, right? So
let's go. Yeah, Rutgers.
I left Rutgers. But one of the things they always talked about was like a business job was to maximize shareholders' value. Yeah. Right. So essentially, the owners of the company, the shareholders, to maximize their value, and how they do that is, doing programs or whatever. So when the DEI thing became a strategy and it wasn't part of people's culture, they hired all these, minority companies, if you will, the diversity, equity, inclusion companies, at different products. I know Walmart had a Target. And then, after things occurred and we had, different legislation that occurred, they no longer had to meet those requirements. So they got rid of them. But there was a huge backlash. Yeah. And then they saw their stock diminish as a result of it. And I will eventually, so that hurts their pocketbook, and it just hurts their public image. So I think you're saying it right. It's not a survival mode. It's a strategy. And it should be a long term that you want to do this because it's the right thing. Yeah. And because it actually not only is the right thing, but it makes you, the most amount of income, and it does, give those shareholders the value that they're looking for.
When I think about just from a diversity standpoint, if I hire people that just looks like me, then I'm only able to meet the need of the people that looks like me, right? When I think about diversity, I want to be able to hire people that can speak a different language than I can speak, be able to handle a customer or a client situation because, hey, I can relate to this situation. I can understand where you're coming from that perspective, right? And so when you think about diversity, I think about what it does, how it opens up, not just from a performance standpoint, but also a selling opportunity, a financial growth opportunity. Yeah. Because ultimately as a business, the number one rule of business that I was taught was to stay in business. If you don't follow number one, right, McCarty, if you don't follow number one, then there are no other rules.
So to that point, like the diversity, have you ever been to an escape room?
Yes.
Was the escape room with your friends or was it with like a diverse group like you're out with?
It's funny. My friends failed when I was with a bunch of different people at a conference. It was a variety of people, a more diverse crowd. It was easy peasy.
Because of the escape room, when I did it with like my family members, people, horrible. We probably got 2 or 3. We all saw the same movies. We all think the same, eat the same fries. Like we all do the same exact thing.
That is a good analogy.
And it's not it was like different people. It wasn't just guys. It was some girls there. Yeah. And it's like, how do you know this information? Yeah. It was like, hey, people are brought up different. I think the same thing applies in the workplace.
Yep. And so now that we're in this survival mode, Garrett, it's just like a lot of companies have operated in fear recently. People change what DEI is. It was DI, it was ID, it was DB, LMNOP, QR. It was all different type of things because people are operating in fear.
Yeah, no doubt.
Some of it is legal fear, some of it is public backlash and what the perspective of other people have. I'm always, this is who we are. This is who we're going to be. Yeah. We're going to treat people right. We're going to care for people, right? We're going to open up opportunities for all people that not necessarily, again, when I say look like me, I don't look from a physical stance. I'm not just talking about from a race. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's not about colors of your skin. But it's, you talk about the age, diversity. You talk about those things that happen with discrimination. For things, for example, we're talking about discrimination on colleges. Yeah. If you have a certain college, it looks a lot better than another, right? You talk about some of those biases. You talk about biases based on names. Yeah. Right. And what that looks like, having a person, we in some of the researches, we use these different applications and promos, and we'll say, all right, which one would you most likely to apply to? And my business partner, Ben, he had a white lady, a black lady, a white man on a picture. And then when you look at the feedback from some of those, majority of black people applied towards the person who looked like them.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's all these different types of things where, like, how do we have this inclusion where it's all people, we're for all people in this area, so that you're not doing, so leaders at this point begin to avoid certain situations. We avoid certain conversations because it's uncomfortable. DEI is very uncomfortable for a lot of people. They don't want to talk about it because their assumption or the perception of what media makes it look like, and sometimes what it makes them feel like as well. And so when you have those hard truths, when I think about hard truths, and I wrote some down, I want to talk about some of these hard truths when it comes to DEI and what DEI has become. From a compliance box of HR standpoint, right, or a PR shield, in a sense, where it loses its credibility. Some hard truths, real quickly, when it comes to the feel, how it's driven from a leadership standpoint, and what it creates is, number one, internal silence. Mm-hmm. Number two, culture fragmentation, right, and then number three, distrust among employees. Think about this. Think about your employees that all of a sudden, and there's a huge, hoopla over the last 2 years, for a lot of HR professionals that have seen this change with their organization or with people that they are connected to. What it does mentally to those workers, those employees, the HR professionals, leaders, when they say, "Hey, DEI is something that's valuable and important," and then years later, it's no more, and we're just going to be about our business.
Not only that, they complain and have terrible things to say about the Super Bowl halftime show because it was Bad Bunny and it was all
He's not American. Puerto Rico's American, ladies and gentlemen.
You know what I'm saying? So and that just, so what does that do to them? What was it? It won't be Puerto
Rican. You want me to make me talk about Bad Bunny because this? Go ahead and finish your sentence.
It'll be are they Latin or what would Spanish?
Spanish, yep.
So Spanish, Mexican. What's that? That
Latin America.
Latin America, right? So imagine you're at work and you're saying how much you hate it, and they love, like, that's their favorite artist.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like, it's the melting pot that we're in right now, right? So celebrating each other's cultures, right, is how we succeed.
Yeah, I'll say the thing that rubbed me wrong with the whole Bad Bunny, just so I can get peace in my heart before we move on, is that the same people that complain that I don't understand what he's saying are the same people that don't understand the last 5 shows. I don't understand what they're saying, whether it's rap. I don't understand what they're saying. Heavy metal. And then they want American. And then I'm saying, how much more American can it be than Puerto Rico, who is a part of the United States of America? How much more American can it be? Metallica's not American.
Yeah.
You think about all these different people, AC/DC, not. And so, anywho, that's my rant. We're going to get over because I personally love all genre of music and I respect it. Even if I didn't understand it, you know what I was doing?
Man, I didn't understand this word he was saying, right? But I could celebrate his culture. And not only that, I could be happy for my friends that love Bad Bunny, love that type of music, that they got, to see that in action at the Super Bowl. So I think sometimes not always about, feeling good for you, but feeling good for other people that it means a lot to.
When it comes to change, and this applies to everything, but specifically because we are talking about this DEI conversation, you can transfer what I'm about to say, transfer it to anything that deals with change. Mm-hmm. Whenever there's change, and if I can sit across the tables of those people who said we have to change DEI, we have to get rid of it, we're all created equal, but are we? When I get pulled over as a black man, I have a nervous fear that I just want to get home and see my kids. Yeah. My adopted father, when he drives, he gets pulled over. He's just wondering, how much is this going to cost me? It's two different mindsets, right? When we talk about the mindsets and the structure that we're in the pressure of this in the state of our country. Now, with this, when it comes to change, Gary, are we changing DEI because it's ineffective? Or are we making this change because it's uncomfortable? Yeah. Like I said, we can apply this to anything. We can apply this to any change that we make in our personal life. We talked about love last week and how in healthy relationships. Am I making a change in my house, in my relationship, in my marriage, my friendship, whatever it is, because it's ineffective? Right. Or am I making this change because I'm uncomfortable?
Yeah. And I think the ineffective part becomes, like you said, it's been a while. It's been in here for a while, the DEI. And I think people talk about the college admissions, and they have to admit certain people that aren't maybe qualified or different positions where somebody might get a job that they don't deem qualified, but because they're right. But there's so many cases where, it happens the opposite when people don't get the job and they're overqualified.
Yep.
Or you hire someone that looks like you and they don't do a good job.
Yeah.
So I think overall there was a study by McKinsey that talked about how companies that are more diverse are the best ran companies. And they have better ideals. Their products are more adaptable inside of the communities because they just have a better understanding of what people need.
Yeah.
Because they're the people.
Yeah.
So it's so hard for outside people to make decisions for people that they never seen, they never interact with. They don't know how they're going to enjoy something. So I think I love that. Is it ineffective or is it uncomfortable? It'd be uncomfortable. Like the Super Bowl is uncomfortable. I couldn't say the words. I was kind of nervous. I was trying to say it. I didn't know what to
Don't say anything. You know what I've learned is don't make up any words because it might be another word in another language.
Right. You gotta be around me because I was singing. I would make up a whole bunch. I would make up the whole song. Right?
Oh man, that's great. So what you're saying is that you're talking about the next talking point. You're talking about the misunderstanding of DEI, and DEI was never meant to lower the standards.
Right.
What it was meant to do was expand.
Yeah.
As you talk about access to qualified people who qualify from education, smart kids in the inner city, but financially don't have the funds to be able to don't have the parents, don't have the financial stability, don't have that father figure, right? When I grew up in the 80s in Hallville, Indianapolis, Indiana, 1 in every 100 homes, Gary, understand this, 1 in every 100 homes had a father in their house. 1 in every 100. Not a man, not a dad, the biological father in the house. Wow. I was one of those 99 that didn't have my biological dad in the house, right? So when you think of that, and we talked about Barack Obama several years, and he still talks about it, and the presidents have been touching on it lately, is like fatherless homes impacts a lot of things, not just in the community, but you talk about college. What happens after college or after high school? You talk about them businesses and organizations and how they function, or like their manufacturing, all these different type of trade type situations, how all these things affect that. So with DEI comes being able to help those who are smart but under, don't have the financials that to be able to qualify from a financial standpoint to pay for their education or be trusted with a loan for the matter. So when you talk about what it was meant for, not for lowering standards, but being able to expand access to qualified candidates, being able to remove the bias in the systems that are there, ensuring performance standards are met. Let me repeat that. Ensuring performance standards are met and apply equally.
Yeah. Right? So 2 things. One is when you're saying not lowering standards and having a more diverse group of applicants. You look at the NFL. And the Rooney Rule we talked about, right? Every team, when they have a coaching vacancy, they have to interview one African American candidate. Make a decision. Before that rule was implemented, someone gets fired, someone gets hired the next day. Like no interviews, period, right? You just hiring someone because you know him, because you reached out to the guy at your country club and you had dinner with him on your private jet. And it's all like access and like vicinity to that access that these people will hire. And now, you hire some other African Americans because they had a chance to interview, prepare themselves, and maybe they don't get it this cycle, but maybe the next cycle they got it. But without that preparation and without going through the process, they won't be prepared or even meet the standard of being a qualified candidate because they didn't have that experience. Yeah.
And so DEI at its core, when it comes to that, is about fairness. Right? Fair access, not favoritism. One of the stories, it's obviously 20 plus years ago, I remember one of my last interviews, and it may have been one of my first, is over the phone. We answer the phone perfect. You're making a phone call. Our voices change. Hey, it's different than, hey, Gary, what's up, man? It's, thank you for calling. Right?
Hello, this is Gary. How can I help you?
The voice changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember when I did a phone interview, they wanted me to come in, and I came in, and after I did the interview, it was great, right? Nice tie, button up. People now are showing up however you want to show up, shorts or whatever. But back then, you had to wear a nice collar shirt, a button-up jacket, some slacks, right, tucked in, belt and shoes, all the things. And I remember after I did this interview, a white gentleman, walked outside the room, door cracked, talking to somebody else, and said, 2 things. I didn't expect George to be white, the name. We talked about bias. And I didn't expect him to be so professional.
Wow.
Because I had braids, right? Phone sounded great. In person, there was a disconnect because I didn't look the name. Right? Didn't look the name. Didn't look like a George Rogers. I mean,
Right.
black people, in the inner city, right? And so when we talk about that, if my name was different, would I have gotten a phone call?
Yeah.
If I gotten a phone call, would they have hired me once they saw me, right? And it was at that moment that I realized sometimes perception is their reality.
Yeah.
Not my reality, but it's their reality.
Yeah.
And I was grateful for the opportunity. I took the job. I worked there. And when I was leaving, I asked that same leader who made that comment, what did you mean by this?
Yeah.
I didn't care anymore because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I was just interested, not from a rude, disrespectful standpoint, but and it was very transparent. Put me aside and say, can we talk? And part of me wish it would say, no, let's talk out here in front of everybody.
Yeah.
So like the adults, like, let's expose you for who you are. But it was a lesson to me is that perception is that they didn't hire necessarily not based on race, but just the assumption of the name and my approach, my presence, how I came in, my background, the school I went to, Ben Davis, right? And so it was just all these assumptions, and sometimes it's not necessarily judgment here, but the judgment often is here, mentally, right?
It's subconscious, a lot of it. And I think a lot of it is programmed, and I'd be lying to say I don't have my own prejudices.
Yeah.
Right. The same if I'm walking on the street and if I see, some white guys coming down with bald heads, right, with long chains, I'm probably crossing the street.
Yeah.
Same if I see a bunch of brothers with their pants hanging down, right, with braids and bandanas, right? So I think some of that times it protects us, but I think we have to be aware of it. The one thing that I saw and I used to use in my diversity talks, and one thing that was great about the NFL locker room is that we had diverse groups from everywhere, right? Guys from Utah, Miami, all over the place, but we had a common goal to win, and there would be some uncomfortable conversations. Like in the locker room, there wasn't no talk about politics, money. We talked about everything. But we always would agree to disagree at the end and not hold that other person responsible for it. And when I saw this, it really made sense. If I drew a 6 on the floor right here, for me, it's a 6. And I'm going to argue with you all day long that it's a 6.
Yeah.
But for you, it's a 9.
Yeah.
And until I come over and look at it from your perspective, I'm always going to think it's a 6.
Yeah.
And until you come over and look at it from my perspective, you always think it was a 9.
Yeah.
So I think it's having that uncomfortable conversation sometimes to learn. And now, like I speak to communicate, I don't speak to convince.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Rewind that, say it again.
I'm speaking to you to communicate. I'm not speaking to convince.
So good.
And I think that's where I think the DEI got in trouble because people trying to convince them. But you can't convince someone who has a different background, have a different understanding. They're going to believe what they believe. And there's nothing wrong with you because you believe that way. But there's also nothing wrong with me because I believe this way. And we can still be cordial, have a good conversation, have a great friendship, and not have always the same beliefs about every topic.
That's so good. I think about, Gary, when excellence and inclusion are both presented in this way, and positioned in a way where they're opposite, they both suffer. Right? When you talk about, hey, this is who we are as a business, we're going to pursue excellence. We talk about our core values, right? The integrity, the community, the caring, the whatever those promises that we make. And then you talk about these other sides of it. Whenever you have the position that they're opposites, they both suffer.
Yep.
They have to come together. So when I think about this, and as we wrap up, what DEI should become. What if because I don't hear a lot of these conversations anymore. And when you brought it, he's like, George, we should touch this. And I'm like, man, I've been in this space, and it's interesting that you don't hear those conversations. Yeah. Now, there are some fighters, there are some armor bearers, there are some men and women in this space that are still carrying this torch and standing ground. One for women, we can talk about from pay. It's still horrible what I can get paid and what you can get paid in comparison to our counterpart who may be a female, black, white, brown, whatever it may be, yellow or peach, right? Yeah. And so, or orange. I'll throw that one in there. And so it depends on I don't know where that came from, Gary. I just want all people, Jesus, everybody. Like I don't discriminate at all. But what it has become. And it rises and falls, right? 60s with the race and the separation, and then all the way up to our age, and then even recently 6 years ago, under the pandemic and the George Floyd, that social injustice, all those things happening, like what it became and then what it is now. And it's like it's a roller coaster, right? Of what it is. And when I think about DEI, and I hear these words a lot from different people and never together, but I believe it becomes merit plus access plus belonging.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about psychological safety a lot. When I think about psychological safety, it has to be diverse.
Yeah.
Right? It has to include all people. Even if they don't look like me, don't walk like me, don't talk like me. One of my favorite people that impacted my life my senior year in high school was a guy named George. George had no arms. And because I was a misunderstood kid, bad for you guys, and not getting my quotes misunderstood, because I was still going through a rough patch in my senior year. I was doing a lot better, excited grade, but I was just ignorant still. Like I wanted attention, class clown. Got in trouble. And George just came to our school, and I was helping him in his class. The thing about George is that George taught me what it meant to not give an opportunity to. Taught me what it meant to be diverse. Taught me what it meant to include, and not just assume because of the lack of arms. What George taught me is that since he was a kid, he's learned to do everything that I could do, and at times do it better. Yeah. George wrote and did his own homework with no arms. George ate and fed himself with no arms. George put his book bag on just like I would put my book bag on with no arms. When I say no arms, nothing. Yeah. Nothing. Because he learned early that just because he didn't have what others had didn't mean that he can still do what others did. He wrote perfectly. He wrote better than some people that I know with just his feet. Wow. Same thing at the table. Had brought in the counter and then people, oh, you putting your feet on the table? Things that we ain't allowed to do with kids at grandma's house back in the day. Right. But showing me what it looks like to be able to adapt. Yeah. Right in that lifestyle. George went to college. George was able to drive. Wow. Local dealership here in Indiana provided a car and customized it where he was able to drive and steer with his feet. Right, in the other foot with the other pedal. George, I don't know where George is to this day. They went to Ben Davis High School, but in 99, 2000, George opened my eyes to what true inclusion looks like. Wow. Did I understand what inclusion was at that point? No. But as I look back and reflect, George changed my life because he didn't look like me, but he could still do things that I could do, and at times do it better. And we missed out on those opportunities. Man,
that's such a good story. And it really just shows you the whole story of don't judge a book by its cover.
True. So true.
And I think that's what you're referring to. So many people have these predetermined ideals about people because of what they look like, because of their name, right? Because of where they attended school. And until you really get to understand and get to know people, you're not really going to understand how powerful and how much value that these people can add. So I think, like you said, it's not a strategy. I think it's just a part of your culture, getting to learn people and really getting people to have a sense of belonging. And when people have a sense of belonging, I think they perform at their highest capability.
Yeah. So for me, as DEI changes and organizations are going to change, they're going to go with whatever the system and the wind is blowing, right? But for me, it's not necessarily about abandoning DEI and BEI. I'll even throw in belonging in there. Yeah. It's really about how do we refine this? How do we refresh this? How do we revive this? What does this look like today? Because what it looks like 4 years ago is different than what it looks like today. Yeah. And that is okay because we as humans, we change. Yeah. Things change. So how do we adapt? How do we make it better? How do we lift this up and have an anchor? And so for me, we anchor that in merit, right? We anchor those things in merit, where performance remains non-negotiable. It doesn't matter what you look like. The performance of your job and responsibility and duty remains there. Being able to have access and audit that access. Our job descriptions. What is there any bias within those? Yep. Recruiting channels. Is there any bias within our systems? There's so many different HR technologies out there right now, and then even with AI bias, sometimes you got to be careful. Especially people using ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, Gemini, whatever you may be using, Copilot. Sometimes you got to say, hey, listen, what are the biases within this field? What is the bias within this outline that I'm using or I want to speak about? And so there's so many different things that can have some type of bias in it. You got to be guarded, because we ourselves as humans sometimes have our own biases as well. And then the final thing is building belonging through leadership behavior. Mm-hmm. And really, inclusion is not a department. Inclusion is really a daily leadership practice that we're going to do. DEI is not a practice. This is something that we are. It's who we are as people.
Yep.
In a world where humans work, we need to work with humans.
Yeah.
In the right way. And for me, I think it all goes back to the heart of leadership. In 2020, when DEI was a thing and racism and all these things was popping up in conversations, Gary, I didn't judge people by their actions. I looked at their heart. What's your heart? Yeah. Do you understand? Do you not understand? Do you want to understand is the key part.
Yep.
And why it looks different from this side of the table and that side of the table. Is a 6 for you, is a 9 for me,
right,
until we were able to see each other's perspectives.
Yeah.
And not necessarily say, you're right, but hey, I now see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I understand. Man, I don't feel.
I don't agree.
I don't agree.
Yeah.
And I may not feel how you feel, but I now see what you see, and I understand those things.
Yep.
And that's the beginning of unity and functioning as humans, when we can see each other's perspectives and not say I hate you.
Yeah.
But I understand you.
No.
And we can still be different.
Yeah.
Right. And so, anything else on your mind on
I
this?
think just last thought for me is like, in organizations, at the end of the day, no matter how big your company is, the speed of the leader is going to determine the rate of the pack.
Yeah.
So you can have all these diversity committees and outcomes, but if the C-level people and the leaders of the organization, aren't acting and don't have this heart, then it's never going to work. It's never going to come across as authentic. And for me as a leader, right, on the football field, sometimes it's like so much to say you can't say anything, and you just want to show people like. And I think one of my best speeches, that I ever gave before a game was just like filled with emotion, filled with rage.
It's authentic.
And just like, hey, follow me today. And just running off to the field. And they're like, what does that mean? I'm going to sprint to the ball every single play. Yeah. I'm going to be locked in. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to communicate. I'm going to do all these things that I'm asking of you. I'm going to lead in that way. And if you follow me, we're going to be successful. Yeah. So I think if more leaders had that approach, had that mindset, we wouldn't be still having this conversation. It'd just be a part of our life.
Yeah, I think the conversation continues. For me, DEI is not dead.
Yeah,
it's being tested.
Yep.
And it's been tested by job titles changing. It's been tested by positions being removed. It's been tested by programs being dispersed, right? And there's all this chaos. It's not dead. It's been tested. And I truly believe, like I said just a minute ago, is that at the end of the day, the heart of the leader, the heart of the business, it's always going to pump and flow through who you are and what you're going to be. Yep. And it's part of your business strategy, just as much as it's part of your sales strategy, marketing strategy. Like if you care for people, period, why did you start the business? Most men and women who created a company started it for many reasons. One, they wanted to provide for themselves and their families. Two, they want to provide opportunities for others.
Yeah. Right.
And when you do those things, leadership matters. The heart of a true leader that cares for people and shows up for people really matters. DEI is not dead. It's being tested. And I want to end it with this last thought, because when people feel respected, accepted, and appreciated, that's the psychological definition of belonging. When they feel accepted, respected, and appreciated, performance rise.
Yep.
When they feel accepted, respected, and appreciated by their leader, they realize they're 4 times more likely to say this is a great place to work.
Yep.
Right. They'll tell and recommend their friends. And so when you talk about the research, and that's just from our company, Lighthouse Research and Advisory, when it comes to that belonging, you have those aspects of the thing. It's not saying your company's perfect, because every company has its flaws and mistakes, has a weak link within its leadership. But how we truly show up and care for our people matters. Yeah. And our people are all people. And at the same time, so for those companies who have switched, that changed, felt the pressure, under pressure, trying to figure that out, like for me, the mindset is that DEI is not dead, it's being tested. And you can only pass the test if you're still sitting at the table.
Yeah.
You got to be able to sit at the table for that. And so inclusion without excellence, and I said it earlier, inclusion without excellence is instability.
Yep.
And excellence without inclusion is limitation. And so that's my last thought, Gary.
Yeah, no, I would just say this. I know a lot of organizations, associations, are looking at this and, you know, have conferences, workshops coming up, and they want to work with people that understand this, right? And I think both of us, we don't have the canned speeches where we're going to come in and degrade your company or anything like that. I think both of us, you know, we have custom ideals and work with organizations about the messages that they want to communicate to the organization. So if your company is still, you know, having these conversations in your organization, we would love you know, to look at it. So go to the website. Yeah, absolutely. And just
check it out.
Put something together, man. We'd love to come to you, talk to you about how this looks like, you know, moving forward in the future.
Yep. I'm ready to have more uncomfortable conversations. It's not uncomfortable for me, but for some people it's very uncomfortable. And I understand that. I've been in uncomfortable situations before in conversations. And so I understand what it's like to have these uncomfortable conversations. But let the madness begin. We're in March Madness. I'm excited about the future podcasts we're going to be having in the next couple of weeks. But if you love what you're hearing here, whether it's today or any past episodes, please like, share, comment. But most importantly for us, please subscribe. It helps us out so much. If you don't mind, reach out to Gary and I. We're always here if you need something. Whether it's a keynote, a workshop, or you need some coaching, whatever it is, that's what we do. That's who we are. That's what we be. If you need some real estate, I know my man got some business. So we're here all the time. But once again, champion your mindset, champion your purpose. This is Champion Blueprint Podcast. George Rogers, the champ himself, Gary Bracken. Until next time, let's go.